All right, here for another episode of the Conveyor Podcast. Today we have founder Lauren Tracy coming in to talk about Moodring.tech, a wearable device to help women with their overall emotional wellness, well-being, and to compete with the likes of other wearables with more fashion. Here to have Lauren Tracy. Welcome aboard. So first things first, you're about to have a kid. Congrats. That's great.
Thank you. Yes, my second child, my second boy. I'm due in about a week.
That's great. Yeah. As a founder, a parent, it sort of shows the dynamic of entrepreneurs are come in all shapes and sizes, right?
Literally. Yeah, that's exactly right. I had to figure out how to not hit burnout myself before starting a family, because I started a company before this and I had that experience. And so I knew that I had to change something before I had a family, which is what brought me to what I'm doing today.
And what better topic today than to talk about women's wellness than for someone who's built a business around that and now building a second business, and someone who is literally in the middle of the most female of all health things happening here.
That's right. Yep, that's exactly right. I am the core user, we'll say.
Excellent. The Conveyor Cast is all about focusing on entrepreneurial leadership in communications. We like to focus on how people manage their core relationships, all the stakeholders in their business, their customers, their prospects, but also their employees and even their family that they drag along with them for their entrepreneurial journey. We want to focus on also how they get their vision out and adapt to the dynamic, as AI always says, the ever evolving dynamic landscape of artificial intelligence, marketing, and go to market. So first things first, Trace or Lauren, sorry.
That's
Lauren
okay.
Tracy.
I have two first names, I know.
Yes. How did you first discover your business's vision, and how did you get it out there?
Yeah, so going back a little bit for context, my first startup company was also a wellness technology company, not hardware. So I'm learning a lot this time around. It was software focused, but we helped young women, Gen Z, mostly teenagers in early 20s with their mental well-being. First, we built a bot that chatted with them over text message about anything that they were going through. So you can imagine the kind of stuff that might come through there. They were very honest and open in the age of, that was pre-AI, that was 2017. So that we really saw kind of the writing on the wall there. And we saw a lot of what was going on, which was stress, anxiety, nervousness was one of the top emotions expressed. And at the same time, myself as an adult woman and my friends going through the same thing, maybe slightly different situations, different ways that we deal with it, but it was pretty prevalent. And also pre-2020. So this is like before we kind of all realized and felt our anxieties really clearly. And then so we built that too. That's like when I learned how to become a tech entrepreneur. We raised money. Building relationships with investors was really important and a new learning for me. And we basically grew to about a little over 400,000 text message subscribers of that product. So we had what we would call product market fit, but we hadn't figured out how to monetize it properly. And so with the stress of all of that, I actually had a panic attack when I told the team that we needed to basically do it again and strike gold, but this time literally be able to make money with it. And that was a big wake-up call for me, because I realized that I was helping other people with their well-being. I had not learned how to come down from high stress. And this was also pre-family. So I really wanted to learn how to do that, and kind of went on my own parallel journey to personally figure that out, how to avoid burnout, stay more of my joyful, energetic self. And it worked, but it was time consuming, expensive. It took me years. I tested journaling, meditation, coaching, therapy, and a lot of it stuck. Some of it didn't. And then I tried an Aura ring specifically to fix my sleep because I realized that some of my nighttime anxiety was stemming from sleep issues. And that was a real kind of eye-opening moment for me of going, wow, we have the ability to utilize biometrics as a support system for this coaching that we're already helping people with. How can we combine these two things to make it a really natural thing that's an extension of who you are? You're literally wearing it every day. It's a reminder to take care of yourself. And that led me to what I'm doing today.
So I think we have lots to talk about when it comes to wearables and what it communicates to us. But first, talking about sort of your journey as the entrepreneur, as the leader in the company, and you're helping. There's kind of a meta. There's very interesting imagery that I'm getting that you were the founder of this company supporting younger women or girls, like high school girls.
Yeah.
And you yourself are suffering your own mental anxiety and stress. And so what was it like? I can picture, a lot of entrepreneurs suffer from like an imposter syndrome or they feel very weighted down by having to not be as human in order to like lead, I think, like when they're going through things. And so what have you discovered about leading and managing people when you're a human, basically?
What a great question. I would say the core learning I had from my first company was, so we went through Techstars, which is an accelerator program that invests money in you. Sometimes they're the first check in. And that was my first real experience with them and a couple other investors, my first real experience raising money and managing that kind of a relationship. And there's really kind of a formula that they teach you. And a lot of it is very useful. I learned a lot very quickly, but part of it that was a little bit strange to me that I didn't resonate with and had to maybe come to a better version of it on my own through experience over time was that they really want you to fall into a certain way of doing things and a certain way of being, a certain way of speaking, especially when you're pitching investors and then when you have a board and you're managing that relationship. And I think what got lost for me was just being myself and being like really honest with people about what my values were and what drives me. I could feel this like sort of incongruence between I want to run a company that is helping people. It is fundamentally an impact business and I am a capitalist, but in order to make that happen properly, you really do have to put the well-being results of your customers first. You can't really put the profit first. And as much as like, your investors don't want to hear that, it's true. And so this time around, I'm going, I need to make sure that the structure of the investment that I take on is actually aligned with that mission. Because we've had investors who personally, right, believe in, let's say, the end well-being of our users, but their business model of venture capitalism venture capital doesn't really support that. Like they have to say, we want 1 out of our every 10 companies to make it big and the rest of them like can fall apart essentially, right? And I'm going, well, I'd rather run a sustainable business that actually helps people over and over again and can grow sustainably. So it doesn't really match up in how you get there along the way, even if the end result could be very similar. So that was a really big learning for me on sort of managing myself as well as those relationships. And this time around, I'm just really open and honest with people about what my intentions are. And if it doesn't match up with their incentives on their side and what they want, then that's okay, right?
I think it's remarkable how maybe it's a part of getting older, but I think the entrepreneurial experience of assuming this identity of being a driver
Yeah.
makes us mask. We kind of lose a bit in the mask of holding that identity. And there's a very stark difference when you leave an organization or exit a company, and then you have a chance to remake
Totally.
partially that mask, but also make it more authentic to who you are a little bit too.
Yep.
And the relationships you cultivate, even the professional ones, contractual ones you have, as a result, are more in alignment with what your internal, drivers are and sustainability. And I bet when you add on raising kids and just sort of your personal life is changing and you're affected by that, it's even more important.
That's a really good point. So one of the things I noticed when I had my first son, who's a little over 2 now, I had him like between the 2 companies, was that I suddenly felt the shift immediately when I had him, or right before I had him, where I was like, whoa, my purpose in life feels incredibly clear and obvious and automatic now. It's him, it's my family. And before that, it was really like, in my mind, it was my career and like my impact there. And it almost had this weight sort of left my shoulders, where I was like, now I can do the other career thing kind of how I want to. Like mentally, I felt more free to kind of make the choices I wanted to make, because I felt like my purpose in life was sort of like taken care of. It was a really fascinating shift.
Getting clearer on what your goals are is always a good thing, right? That sounds great. And I guess maybe this sort of feeds into the next topic, which is around wearables and feedback. I remember getting my first Fitbit, and it was probably in 2010, 2011. It was very weak. It was like an odometer, the
Yep.
walking thing.
Did it go in your shoe, that one?
No, it was the one that it was a band, but I fidgeted too much that I basically ruined the strap and I lost it somehow. And so what, tell me about the feedback loop that wearables provide to help us, this idea of like the quantified self. So it's sort of this formula where if I know more about myself, if I get support with having better self-awareness, then I'm better able to manage myself or grow possibly.
Yeah. So I'll start this off by saying I would not consider myself a wearables person. I didn't come to this product because of that. I actually came to it almost because of the opposite, where I was going, I know that this stuff can help me. Like logically, I understand I probably should have an Apple Watch and all these things, right? I did get an Oura ring, but once I sort of fixed my sleep, and that's all they did when I got it. They didn't really have the other stuff in it yet. But when I fixed my sleep, I was like, build that habit. Great, cool. It served its purpose, done. But I still had the issue of needing to manage my well-being almost 24/7, right? And as life changes, that need changes. So it's fundamentally a little bit different than what's out there today, because most wearables, out of kind of necessity, have been about tracking things that are really, like you said, quantifiable. Steps, right? Heart rate. Sleep has a lot of quantifiable elements inside of it, with the stages that you're going through during the night. And mental well-being is a little bit more layered, a little bit more complex. And I'll get back to that in a second. But one of the things that I saw was that sort of people like me, and I'll qualify them like this. There's kind of 2 people in the world who are interested in wearables that I found today. One is they like tracking their numbers. They like tracking their body. They think about stuff from the perspective of quantifying themselves and then figuring out what to do from there makes sense to their brains. There's another group of people that are more driven from the idea of, how do I feel right now? Do I feel good or do I feel bad? And that is largely driven by just the feeling of a mood, which is impacted by your physical well-being, things going on in your life. There's a lot of factors that go into that. And largely women tend to fit into that second category. There are, of course, exceptions for everybody, but that's what we're finding. And so we are coming at this from the perspective of going, there really aren't wearables built to help people with that second mindset really clearly. Oftentimes they feel like the user experience is either too much, there's too much data, they don't want to miss anything, right? And they have to do the hard work to analyze all of that, but they're busy, they don't have time, right? Like, this is a very complex problem to solve, especially for your mental well-being. And women are sort of like hacking it, going, oh, I can use it for my cycle. Oh, it's got a resilience or stress score now. Like, I'm going to only focus on those two things and then try to pull out what I can pull out. But those are like the last additions to these products. They're not really built for that from the ground up. And what they really are asking for is a guide, basically 24/7 or whenever they need it, to help them go, I feel X, now what? Like, that's what we saw at our first company. Was that's how people used our text message bot. It was, I feel like this, either positive or negative, right? Now what? How do I get more of that? Or how do I shift myself from one feeling to another state, or from one feeling that I realize is being caused by a bad habit or something I can control, and how do I control that over time? And that's what we're saying. We're first and foremost good at that. And any interaction with the ring and any biometrics that come in after that are just in support of that.
There's this theme, I think, in our conversation, and it's about maintaining your frame through sort of the outside world putting pressure on us a little bit, talking about VC term sheets and trying to build an impactful business, and being kind of pulled in another direction. And then this sort of quantifiable maximization of your, efficiency around sleep, or how fast you run, or not everyone wants to run a marathon with like a record, beat their personal record, right? And I'd say there's a lot of people who aren't interested in that.
Most people are not interested.
Yeah, most people are definitely not interested in that. So one more question about content and branding as an entrepreneur related to this topic. So as an entrepreneur, part of the table stakes is being seen. It's not just about your business, it's about being seen. People want to know why you're doing what you're doing. They want to build trust with you, not just the logo. At the same time, being a shameless self-promoter does not feel authentic. So how do you reconcile these two things, and what's that been like for you?
I do not have a good answer for this. I'll tell you what my brain does, but it's something I feel like I oscillate on pretty regularly. The first thing that just came to my mind was that my husband is incredibly good at this. And I've watched him be so consistent over time with putting himself out there. He really, I think it took him like 7 years to build up a following on Twitter. And he was literally tweeting and responding to people throughout his entire day, every day for 7 years. And he enjoyed that. And I found that for me, the problem I have is I don't really enjoy that kind of thing. I'm a little bit more of somebody who goes, I'm going to kind of retreat, go research, figure out what I need to figure out, see the problem, find solution, and then like reemerge with, a solution that I want to build. And so throughout my whole life, I've realized there are these sort of like waves like that. So my natural pattern doesn't lend itself super well to the like, you have to post every single day to be seen on like a social media kind of platform. But I'm starting to accept that, going back to like, being true to how you function and what feels good to you. I'll get better at that over time because I can scale and have people help me and plan ahead to have things happening when I'm in that other phase. I'm like finally kind of learning I need to do that. But what is really, really helpful to me is having a consistent network that I'm always communicating with that spans from the potential customers that I'm always talking to I don't even know how many people at this point that I essentially take notes on in my Google Drive. I have a file for every single person and every meeting that we've had over the last almost 5 years or so. And I've kind of honed that process and I eventually, bring people over into being advisors or working with me in some capacity, or a lot of them become customers, or I have a list of like 180 people who I consider experts in various areas that I'm interested in or need for our business. And I just message them when I have some kind of thing I'm trying to solve, and bringing them into the fold is really helpful and keeps momentum for me. So I know that I always need some kind of feedback loop to make sure that I'm focused and validating like the stuff that's working the best and moving in that direction. And then I can quickly solve for the other things with this group. But I think the more like public facing person is still something that I'm figuring out how to do regularly. That might also be, I think maybe I'm more ready for it now. And it may also be that I was working on how to express myself most authentically for the last couple of years. And now I feel really centered in that way and can stay balanced in that way. So always learning and figuring it out. Don't feel like I have the best handle on it yet.
Producing content and content's an extension of relationship management, and it sounds right off the bat that you are skilled and natural at nurturing your relationships, which in my opinion as a content marketer communicator, I think is the most important skill to hone for a lot of folks. Some folks are very good at throwing, kindling on the fire, very good at sort of like growth hacker type of marketing, and then need to work on the nurturing, which is putting a big log and like the fire sustains itself.
Yes.
Type of thing. And so focusing on nurturing your relationships, being warm, and thinking about each stakeholder and what relationship you have with them as a group, but also individually, is really, really important. And thinking about even content or producing content. You talked about your husband, like he was working on one-to-one. It's literally a knife fight, before it becomes a bigger thing. You have to go and win the hearts and minds slowly but surely, and then it turns into a lot of goodwill that looks like a following, quote unquote, eventually. But I think this has been a great learning experience. I think what your story here represents is that, being a great communicator is all about having a healthy relationship to your ambition, to the impact you want to make. Sometimes that requires some learning and experience, but there are folks who are taking on these entrepreneur leadership positions within communities, with even new communities like women entrepreneurs that are changing a bit of this dynamic. And you can be a great communicator, always a work in progress, that is healthy to the ambition and authenticity that you have. So really appreciate having you on board, Lauren. Let me know how the folks can stay in touch with you here.
Yeah. So what we're working on right now at Moodring.tech is the prototype for the ring and app. So smart mood rings, that's what we're building. And if people are interested in testing them, largely the audience that's really this is resonating with are women in business, women entrepreneurs, women who have a family or are thinking about a family, that group tends to be really interested. We have a wait list at Moodring.tech, and you can also follow us on Instagram at Moodring.tech as well. And when we are ready to start showing you guys and selling the very early versions of these, you're going to be the first ones to hear about it, because we're going to start out kind of quiet, really make sure that the product is beautiful and helpful before we go more wide. So if anybody is interested in that, please sign up. And if you want to reach out to me directly about anything, that's awesome too. My email is very easy. It's Lauren@Moodring.tech.
Really nice to meet you, Lauren. Thanks so much for being on the Conveyor podcast.
Thank you, Quinn. It was fun, and I think I learned a little bit about myself today, so that's always very useful.